Seeds of connection. The morning sun filtered through the canopy of old oak trees as Celeste knelt beside a patch of heritage tomatoes, her sketchbook balanced carefully on her knees. Her pencil moved in gentle strokes across the paper, capturing the delicate curves of leaves that had been passed down through generations of gardeners. At 24, she had already gained recognition for her botanical illustrations, but her true passion lay in documenting plants that might otherwise be forgotten. "Excuse me," a warm voice said behind her. "Are you drawing the Brandywine tomatoes?" Celeste looked up to find a tall man with kind brown eyes and soil under his fingernails, always a good sign in her book. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and he wore a simple flannel shirt rolled up to reveal strong forearms. "Yes," she replied softly, closing her sketchbook with a gentle smile. "They're beautiful specimens. Some of these plants are over 100 years old in lineage." "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand. "Landscape architect, and apparently terrible at introducing myself before asking about someone's work." "Celeste," she laughed, shaking his hand. "Botanical illustrator, and apparently used to people being curious about what I'm drawing." Marcus crouched down beside her, studying the tomato plants with professional interest. "I'm working on the new design for the east section of the community garden. The planning committee wants to expand, but I've been advocating for preserving these heritage varieties." "Really?" Celeste's eyes lit up. "Most people don't understand why old plants matter." "Oh, I understand completely," Marcus said earnestly. "There's something about plants that have survived decades, even centuries. They carry stories, genetic diversity, adaptation. Destroying that for convenience feels wrong." For the next hour, they walked through the garden together. Celeste showed him her favorite corner where she cultivated rare herbs passed down from her grandmother, while Marcus explained his vision for creating spaces that honored both functionality and history. She found herself drawn to his thoughtful approach, the way he listened carefully and asked questions that showed genuine interest rather than polite conversation. "My grandmother always said that gardens are mirrors of the soul," Celeste shared, as they paused beside a climbing rose that had been blooming in the same spot for 30 years. "Patient gardeners grow patient gardens." "Wise woman," Marcus replied. "Mine used to say that good things take time to grow properly. Rushing only creates weak roots." Something in the way he said it with such gentle conviction made Celeste's heart flutter unexpectedly. She had always been cautious about letting people close, protective of the values her grandmother had instilled in her about taking time, building slowly, nurturing carefully. As they reached the garden's entrance, Marcus hesitated. "Would you maybe like to get coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your illustration work, and there are some botanical gardens downtown I think you'd find fascinating." Celeste felt a warmth spread through her chest. "I'd like that very much." "Saturday afternoon?" he suggested. "Perfect," she agreed, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. As Marcus walked away, Celeste opened her sketchbook again, but instead of the tomatoes, she found herself drawing the gentle curve of his smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he listened. She had always believed that the most beautiful things grew slowly, with care and attention. Looking at her sketch, she wondered if perhaps the same might be true for love. That evening, she called her best friend Rachel to share the news of meeting someone special. "He understands plants," she said simply, as if that explained everything, and perhaps, for Celeste, it did. Growing roots. 3 months had passed since that first meeting in the community garden, and Celeste found herself looking forward to Marcus's texts each morning. Their coffee dates had evolved into long walks through Portland's parks, visits to art galleries, and quiet evenings spent reading together in her small apartment above the flower shop where she worked part-time. "Tell me about your grandmother." Marcus said one autumn afternoon as they sat on a bench overlooking the Willamette River. The maple trees around them blazed with gold and crimson, and Celeste had been sketching the way light filtered through the leaves. Celeste's pencil paused on the paper. "She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12, she began quietly. Grandmother Helena was old-fashioned, I suppose some would say. She believed in doing things the right way, even if it took longer." Marcus nodded, encouragingly, sensing there was more. "She taught me that some things in life are worth waiting for," Celeste continued, her voice soft but steady. "Like her garden. She never used shortcuts or chemicals. Every flower, every vegetable was nurtured slowly, naturally. She said the same principles applied to life, to relationships, to, well, everything important. She sounds like a remarkable woman," Marcus said, reaching over to gently touch Celeste's hand. "I can see her influence in everything you do, the way you care for plants, the patience in your artwork, the thoughtfulness in how you approach everything." Celeste felt her cheeks warm at his words. Over these months, she had come to cherish Marcus's gentle nature, his ability to listen without judgment, his respect for her sometimes old-fashioned perspectives. When other men had grown impatient with her cautious approach to physical intimacy, Marcus seemed content to simply hold her hand, to share gentle kisses, to build their connection slowly. "Sometimes I worry I'm too traditional for the modern world," she admitted, closing her sketchbook and looking out at the water. "Celeste," Marcus said, turning to face her fully, "there's nothing wrong with having standards, with wanting to do things right. In my work, I see too many projects rushed, too many shortcuts taken. The beautiful, lasting things always take time and intention." That evening, Marcus walked her home as always, stopping at her door for their customary goodnight kiss. But tonight, something felt different. As his lips met hers, soft and warm, Celeste felt a deeper pull, a yearning that both thrilled and frightened her. "Marcus," she whispered as they separated, her heart racing. "I know," he replied softly, resting his forehead against hers. "I feel it too, but we have all the time in the world, Celeste. There's no rush." After he left, Celeste sat in her small kitchen, making chamomile tea from herbs she'd grown herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from her college roommate, Jessica, who was visiting from San Francisco. "Coffee tomorrow. I have so much to tell you about dating in the city. Please tell me you're finally sleeping with that architect guy. It's been 3 months. Celeste stared at the message, feeling a familiar knot in her stomach. Jessica meant well, but she couldn't understand Celeste's choices. Few people could, in a world where physical intimacy often preceded emotional connection. She thought about her grandmother's words. "Intimacy is like a rare orchid, my dear. Rushed blooms are beautiful but fleeting. The ones that take time to open are the most magnificent and last the longest." The next day, over coffee, Jessica peppered her with questions. "So what's the deal? Is he not attracted to you? Are you not attracted to him?" Because honestly, Celeste, holding out for marriage is pretty unrealistic these days. "It's not about marriage specifically," Celeste tried to explain. "It's about connection, meaning, making sure what we have is real and lasting before we share something so intimate," Jessica sighed dramatically. "You know, not every guy is going to wait around forever. Marcus seems great, but he's still a man." After Jessica left, Celeste found herself doubting for the first time in months. Was she being unfair to Marcus? Was she holding on to outdated ideals that would ultimately cost her the best relationship she'd ever had? That evening, as if sensing her troubled thoughts, Marcus called. "Want to take a walk?" he asked simply. They met at the community garden where they'd first encountered each other. The autumn air was crisp, and most of the summer plants had been cleared away, leaving the space feeling peaceful and contemplative. "You seem quiet tonight," Marcus observed as they walked slowly down the main path. "Jessica thinks I'm being unfair to you," Celeste said suddenly, then immediately regretted her bluntness. Marcus stopped walking and turned to her. Unfair how? By not being more physically available, she stammered, her cheeks burning. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he gently took her hands in his. Celeste, look at me, he said softly. When she met his eyes, she saw only warmth and sincerity. What we're building together is exactly what I want. Your thoughtfulness, your values, the way you approach everything with intention. That's not unfair, it's beautiful. But don't you want? She began. Of course I do, he said honestly. I'm attracted to you in every way possible, but I also respect you, and I respect what we're creating together. When the time is right, for both of us, it will be incredible, because it will mean something. Tears pricked at Celeste's eyes. How did I get so lucky to find you? We found each other, Marcus corrected, pulling her into a warm embrace, and we're going to keep growing together, at exactly the right pace. As winter settled over Portland, their relationship deepened in countless ways. Marcus learned to read Celeste's moods in the tilt of her head while she sketched. Celeste discovered that Marcus hummed unconsciously when he was truly content, usually when they were cooking together or reading side by side. They shared dreams, fears, childhood, memories, and quiet moments that felt more intimate than anything physical could have been. Seasons of Understanding Spring arrived early that year, and with it, the first anniversary of Celeste and Marcus meeting. They had planned a picnic in the community garden, surrounded by the tender green shoots of new growth and the sweet fragrance of blooming fruit trees. Can you believe it's been a year? Celeste asked, spreading their blanket near the heritage tomato patch where Marcus had first approached her. Feels like yesterday and forever at the same time, Marcus replied, unpacking the sandwiches they'd made together that morning. Over the past 12 months, their relationship had evolved into something deeper than Celeste had ever imagined possible. They had navigated small disagreements with patience and understanding, supported each other through professional challenges, and created countless beautiful memories together. Marcus had met her few remaining relatives during the holidays. Charming. Her elderly aunt with his knowledge of antique roses. Celeste had been embraced by his large, boisterous family during their Sunday dinners, finding herself adopted as the daughter they'd always hoped Marcus would bring home. Yet despite their deep emotional intimacy, Celeste found herself increasingly conflicted about her physical boundaries. It wasn't that she didn't desire Marcus, quite the opposite. Sometimes when they kissed, or when he held her close during their movie nights, she felt a pull so strong it took all her willpower to maintain her resolve. Marcus, she said suddenly, setting down her sandwich. Do you ever think about our future? I mean, really think about it? Every day, he replied without hesitation. Why? Because sometimes I wonder if what I'm asking of you, of us, is realistic long-term. We're both adults. We love each other, and yet I'm still... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Still what? Marcus prompted gently. Still waiting for something that might never feel right, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus set down his own food and moved closer to her on the blanket. Celeste, can I tell you something? Waiting for you doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It feels like the most natural thing in the world. But how can you be sure? She asked, finally meeting his eyes. How do you know that what we have will be enough? That I'll be enough? The vulnerability in her voice made Marcus's heart ache. Because what we have isn't about enough or not enough. It's about choice. Every day I choose you. Every day you choose me. And when we're ready, really ready, to choose each other in every way, it will be because we want to, not because we feel we have to. My grandmother used to say that intimacy was like tending a garden, Celeste said softly. You prepare the soil carefully, plant at the right season, nurture with patience, and trust that when the time is right, everything will bloom beautifully. She was a wise woman, Marcus said, brushing a strand of hair from Celeste's face. And she raised an incredible granddaughter who knows her own worth and isn't afraid to honor her values. That afternoon, as they walked through the garden together, Celeste felt a shift in her understanding. It wasn't about waiting for marriage specifically, or adhering to rules for the sake of rules. It was about waiting for the moment when her heart, mind, and soul were aligned in complete trust and readiness. "I think," she said carefully, "that what I'm really waiting for is to be absolutely certain that we're both ready for forever. Not just the physical intimacy, but everything that comes with it. The complete vulnerability, the total commitment." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that I can envision forever. With you," Celeste replied, her voice growing stronger with certainty. "And maybe it's time to start talking about what forever looks like." They spent the rest of the afternoon discussing their dreams, the kind of home they wanted to create together, their hopes for careers and family, their shared vision of a life built on the same principles that governed their relationship: patience, intention, and deep abiding love. As summer progressed, their conversations grew more concrete. Marcus began sketching designs for a small house with extensive gardens. Celeste researched the logistics of expanding her illustration work into a full-time career. They talked about children, about growing old together, about the kind of legacy they wanted to leave. "You know," Marcus said one evening as they sat on Celeste's small balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold, "I used to think that love was about finding someone you couldn't live without. But being with you has taught me that real love is about finding someone you don't want to live without, someone who makes every day better just by being in it." "That's beautiful," Celeste murmured, leaning into his shoulder. "It's also a very long way of saying that I'd like to spend the rest of my life with you if you'll have me," Marcus continued, his voice slightly nervous. Celeste sat up straighter, her heart beginning to race. "Marcus, I don't have a ring yet," he said quickly. "I wanted to make sure this was something you wanted before I made any assumptions. But Celeste, I love you more than I ever thought possible. And I can't imagine my future without you in it." Tears spilled down Celeste's cheeks as she cupped his face in her hands. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I want to spend my life with you too." As they kissed under the emerging stars, Celeste felt a profound sense of rightness, as if all the seeds they'd been planting over the past year were finally ready to bloom into something magnificent. The proposal and truth, too. Months later, on a crisp October morning that mirrored the day they'd first met, Marcus led Celeste back to the community garden. She had assumed they were coming to help with the fall cleanup, but when they rounded the corner to their special spot by the heritage tomatoes, Celeste gasped. The entire area had been transformed into a fairy tale setting. String lights hung between the trees, creating a canopy of soft golden light. The path was lined with mason jars filled with wildflowers, all varieties that Celeste had sketched over the past year. In the center of the space stood a small arch woven from grapevines and adorned with white roses. "Marcus," Celeste breathed, her hands flying to her mouth. "This is where we began," he said softly, taking her hands in his. "This is where I first saw you, where I first understood that some things in life are worth waiting for, worth nurturing, worth protecting." Other gardeners had gathered at a respectful distance, many of whom had watched their relationship bloom over the past year and a half. Celeste recognized Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman who had taught her about heirloom varieties, and James, the young father who always brought his toddler to help water the plants. Marcus dropped to one knee, pulling out a vintage ring box. "Celeste Helena Morrison," he said, his voice thick with emotion. You have taught me that the most beautiful things in life grow slowly, with intention and care. You've shown me what it means to love someone completely, not just their beauty or their charm, but their values, their dreams, their gentle soul. Celeste was crying openly now, but her smile was radiant. "Will you marry me?" Marcus asked, opening the box to reveal a stunning vintage engagement ring with a diamond surrounded by tiny leaves crafted from white gold. "Will you let me spend the rest of my life tending the garden of our love together?" "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, of course, yes." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, their small audience erupted in cheers and applause. The ring fit perfectly, and Celeste realized it looked exactly like something from her grandmother's era. "It was my great-grandmother's," Marcus explained as they embraced. "My grandmother saved it for me to give to the right woman. She said I'd know when I found someone who understood that love isn't about finding the perfect person, but about choosing to build a perfect love together." The celebration continued with champagne and homemade cookies that Mrs. Patterson had mysteriously produced from her gardening bag. As the afternoon wore on and their friends gradually drifted away, Celeste and Marcus found themselves alone again in their sacred space. "Marcus," Celeste said quietly, her fingers tracing the intricate details of her new ring. "There's something I need to tell you. Something important." "What is it, love?" Celeste took a deep breath, feeling suddenly vulnerable despite their deep connection. I've never been with anyone before. Physically, I mean. Completely." Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing her words. "Never?" "Never," she confirmed, her cheeks burning. "I know that probably seems strange for someone my age, but between my grandmother's influence and my own feelings about intimacy, I wanted to wait until I was absolutely certain I'd found my forever person." Marcus cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away the tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Celeste, that's not strange. It's beautiful. And the fact that you're trusting me with that gift. I'm honored beyond words. You're not disappointed? Or worried?" she asked anxiously. "Disappointed?" Marcus laughed softly. "Celeste, what you've just told me makes me love you even more, if that's possible. It shows me how much this means to you, how much I mean to you. There's no disappointment, only gratitude." "I was so nervous to tell you," she admitted. "You never have to be nervous with me," Marcus assured her. "We'll figure everything out together at our own pace, just like we always have." As they walked home hand in hand, Celeste felt a profound sense of peace. Sharing her secret had lifted a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. More importantly, Marcus's reaction had confirmed what she'd known in her heart for months. He was indeed her forever person. That evening, they began planning their wedding. They decided on a small ceremony in late spring, held in the botanical garden where they'd had their first official date. The guest list would include only their closest, family and friends, people who had supported and celebrated their patient approach to love. "I want it to be simple," Celeste said as they sketched ideas in her journal. "Meaningful rather than elaborate, something that reflects who we are as a couple." "Exactly what I was hoping you'd say," Marcus replied, kissing the top of her head. "Although I do have one request." "What's that?" "I'd like to write my own vows," he said. "There are things I want to say to you that can't be found in traditional ceremonies." "I'd love that," Celeste agreed. "I have so much I want to promise you, too." Over the following months, as they planned their wedding and prepared to merge their lives completely, Celeste found herself experiencing a new kind of anticipation. The physical desire she'd kept carefully contained was growing stronger, but it was accompanied by an emotional readiness she'd never felt before. Knowing that Marcus truly understood and respected her choices made her feel safe in a way that was entirely new. First bloom. Their wedding day dawned clear and warm, with the kind of perfect spring weather that seemed designed for new beginnings. The botanical garden was at its most magnificent, with flowering trees creating a natural cathedral and the air sweet with the scent of blooming jasmine and honeysuckle. Celeste wore her grandmother's wedding dress, which her aunt had carefully preserved and altered to fit perfectly. The vintage lace and pearl buttons felt like a blessing from Helena, a reminder that some traditions were worth maintaining not out of obligation, but out of love. As she walked down the petal-strewn path toward Marcus, who waited under an arch of white roses and trailing greenery, Celeste felt as if every moment of waiting, every careful choice, had led to this perfect culmination. Marcus, resplendent in a charcoal-gray suit with a boutonniere of herbs from their community garden, couldn't take his eyes off his bride. When she reached him, he whispered, "You look absolutely radiant." Their ceremony was intimate and heartfelt. When it came time for vows, Marcus spoke first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Celeste, you have taught me that love isn't about urgency or possession, but about patience and cultivation. Like the plants you draw with such care, our love has grown slowly, developing strong roots and sturdy branches before producing its most beautiful blooms. I promise to tend our marriage with the same intentionality you've taught me to value, to water it with kindness, give it space to grow, and never take for granted the miracle of what we've built together." Celeste's own vows brought tears to many eyes in their small gathering. "Marcus, you saw value in my old-fashioned heart and never asked me to change for anyone else's timeline. You taught me that waiting isn't about fear, but about knowing your own worth and refusing to settle for anything less than extraordinary love. I promise to bring that same discernment to our marriage, to choose you every day, to build our life together with intention and care, and to never forget that the most beautiful things are worth waiting for." After they exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, their first kiss as a married couple felt like the natural culmination of 18 months of growing closer in every way that mattered. The reception was held in the garden's greenhouse, surrounded by exotic plants and soft candlelight. Their families mingled easily, united in their joy for the couple who had clearly found something special in each other. As evening approached, Celeste and Marcus said goodbye to their guests and drove to a charming bed and breakfast in the countryside, surrounded by rolling hills and old-growth trees. Their suite overlooked a private garden with a pond and a small gazebo that reminded them of their first walks together. "Nervous?" Marcus asked gently as they stood together on their private balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "No," Celeste replied, and was surprised to realize she meant it completely. Excited, maybe. Grateful, definitely. But not nervous. "Good," Marcus said, pulling her close. "Because we have all night, and all of forever, to figure this out together." When they moved inside, Celeste excused herself to change into the silk nightgown her aunt had given her as a wedding gift. Looking at herself in the mirror, she saw not anxiety, but anticipation in her eyes. 18 months of emotional intimacy had prepared her for this moment in ways she was only now beginning to understand. Marcus was waiting for her when she emerged, having changed into comfortable pajama pants and a soft cotton shirt. He had dimmed the lights and opened the windows to let in the evening breeze, creating an atmosphere that felt peaceful rather than pressured. "Hi, wife," he said softly, making her giggle. "Hi, husband," she replied, moving into his arms naturally. Their physical union that night was everything Celeste had hoped it would be, tender, meaningful, and yes, sometimes awkward in the way of all new experiences. But it was also suffused with the deep trust and emotional intimacy they had spent months building. When uncertainty arose, they communicated. When something felt right, they celebrated it together. When they needed to pause or adjust or simply hold each other, they did so without embarrassment. "I love you," Marcus whispered afterward as Celeste lay curled against his chest, feeling more complete than she ever had before. "I love you too," she replied, tracing lazy patterns on his skin. "And I'm so glad we waited for this, for each other, for the right moment, for when we were ready to give everything." "No regrets about taking our time?" Marcus asked, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "None whatsoever," Celeste said firmly. "My grandmother always said that anything worth having is worth waiting for, and this, us, was definitely worth every moment of patience." As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, Celeste thought about the seeds they had planted in that community garden 18 months ago. Patience, intention, trust, and deep, abiding love had grown into something more beautiful than she could have imagined. Tomorrow they would begin their married life together, tending the garden of their love with the same care and attention that had brought them to this perfect beginning. But tonight, they simply held each other close and marveled at how sometimes the most extraordinary blooms come from the most carefully cultivated ground. Outside their window, night-blooming jasmine filled the air with its sweet fragrance, a reminder that some of the most beautiful flowers reveal themselves only to those willing to wait for the perfect moment.